A little bit of my background, I'm a senior consultant project manager with Aktion, and I've consulted on over 300 ERP implementations over the last 20 years. Also worked for architectural and engineering companies using the Deltek Vision system. So have experience not only on the consulting side, but in real life use of the application. And I'm certified both in Vantagepoint and CRM, Vantagepoint CRM and Vision CRM. So again, thank you, everyone. So the agenda for today, we're going to cover workflows, types of workflows, and workflow actions. And then dashboards, we'll go into dashboards, at least a definition of it, and then we'll take some examples of existing dashboards to show you what the look and feel of those are. And then follow up with Q&A at the end. So what is a workflow and why use workflows? So a workflow is a software tool that allows you to define repeatable actions based on field changes or events to automate processes that align with your business rules. So anytime that you maybe have a repeatable action that every time you update this field, you have a definable action based on that update, you can program that into the system using this software tool to write those workflows. And typically workflows is what I consider a configuration of the application. So a user can, once they get up to speed on how to develop workflows, can actually do that themselves. There's also what I consider more of a customization of the application, which is a stored procedure that functions as a workflow, but you would need some SQL programming capabilities to be able to create that type of workflow. And so why use workflows? Well, workflows, as I mentioned, is a process that once you do this, you need to have to physically update something, maybe another field. So it allows you to automate that so you can save time, increase accuracy, so that once that's programmed in the system, this action always happens based on that change, or what we call a user initiation. So it as I said, increases that accuracy, and it's also an effective tool for distribution of knowledge. So you can set up workflows that you can email reports to people, notify them of changes in the system, and either through what's called the notification in the application or that email process. So it's it's a full functioning tool to allow the users to really distribute information based on changes in the application. So there are three types of workflows. As I mentioned, user-initiated ones. So every time you update this field, save that record, it really updates another field in the application. And I'll show some demonstrations of that. But it is what is basically you're initiating that workflow based on a change in the application. Then there's scheduled workflows, which are similar in nature to the user initiated, but instead of someone causing that action, you schedule that workflow to happen. So I mentioned emails or reports. So maybe you have a defined report that you want everybody in the company to receive prior to the next morning. So you could say, well, every night at 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock, whatever the case is, you want that report to be run, and then email that to all the people that should receive that report. So it's a scheduled workflow and allows you to, as I said, based on a time frame, allow that workflow then to activate. Then there's web services. And again, this is a little bit more what I guess would be that customization. So again, would require some typical SQL experience or web services experience to be able to create that workflow and trigger that based on user saves, approvals, or routing of records. So workflow actions. First two are related, where there's a pop-up that would show on your screen based on either a validate warning or a validate error workflow. So if you require that certain fields are updated in the application, you might set up a warning or an error and notify that person that this field needs updating. The difference between a warning versus an error is a warning is just that. It's a pop-up menu. It's warning that this field should be populated. But if you don't have that information at hand, it still allows you to save the record and continue on what you're doing. It'll happen every time you update or insert information into the application. But again, it's just a warning asking you to fill out that information. The validate error is basically a warning, but it doesn't allow you to move on in the application. So you receive this error pop-up saying that this field requires information, meaning that it requires you to fill out this information before you can save the record. So there's two different ways of validating information in the application, and there's different levels, one being the warning versus the error. An email alert is just that. An email goes out to notify people of changes in the application. If you're using it for CRM capabilities, you might stay a stage in the process of that opportunity or pre-awarded life cycle as a stage change, and you want to notify people of that. Or if a project is awarded, maybe notify them, or use it as any changes that might be in the application. Could be that that report that goes out as well. So it's an email that you would receive as a result of that information that's been changed. Notification center, there's an area in the application that shows you notifications that you would have, and it works fairly similar to the email, but instead of receiving an email, you have a notification that appears in the application. What I would say probably one of the largest uses of the application is a column field change. And that would be, as I described earlier, where maybe you update that stage change and it updates another area of the application. Again, saving time and also increasing that accuracy. So it is a defined action which updates other fields within the system. The create activity is similar in the sense that it's an alert, but it goes out into the future to say, well, based on this activity, I want you to create an activity, or based on this change in the system, I want an activity created, which will basically be similar to either a calendar activity, or there's activity functions in the system that you can set to say, I want to be notified in a week, a month, a couple of days, whatever the case is, to say, all right, I need kind of as a touch point activity saying you need to follow up with a client, or other follow up with the client to say more of a description of what that activity is, and allow you to define what that information is that you need to follow up on. Okay, the function again is a standard tools within the application that allows you to use SQL coding. This one is not as what I would say functionality that you have to be a SQL programming expert, but it does require some additional knowledge in terms of how to set up those functions. Could be something as project numbering, which could be an automated function, and be able to maybe create other actions that happen as a result of that function. So it's I would say kind of borders on that customization, but it's still a configuration tool for setting up these workflows. So we'll take a look at the validate warning. At the bottom where I have the arrows, we're setting one up on the insert or change within the system. An insert is a workflow that is initiated based on the insertion of a new record. So you are creating a new project, creating a new client or contact or employee, and having some notification going out based on the inserted record. The change workflow type is based on the change of a record. So the record's already been created or inserted into the application, and now you're coming back and changing information in the system. There's also a third version of this, which is the delete workflow type. And so it's similar in nature to the insert, but obviously it's the opposite. Instead of inserting a new record, you're deleting a record. Usually I'd say deletion of material or information in the systems may be restricted to only certain users in the application, because there could have other ramifications if you're deleting information in the system that maybe other people are still using that. So it, I would say, should be controlled by certain users. So in this case, we're picking a workflow type, in this case, the insert and change, and then we're assigning that description to say, okay, this is a market field warning. So there's a field in the system called market, and it's a warning that's going to pop up based on needing to populate that field. So as I said, the warning will allow you to save this record, but it is requesting that information through that pop-up. So in the conditions of the workflow, this is where defining what is triggering this workflow to activate. So in this case, we are based on the change or the insertion of that record. If you don't fill the market field in the application and the system sees that it's empty, it will notify you through those pop-ups. So in this case, the market is empty. And when you save that record, you'll get that pop-up warning asking you to fill in that information. And so there's an example of the workflow pop-up. It says market field warning, complete if market is known. And I have that field at the bottom highlighted, that none, showing that there's no information in that field within the market. So that will activate that workflow. Here's another one with regards to the email notification. So in this case, based on a change in the application, we want to notify the PM, the project manager, and the biller that the stage has changed. So that will send out the email alert to those two groups of individuals. And in this case, we say PM and biller, as there are fields within the application that allows you to fill in that project manager and that biller, and then the information will be sent to those individuals on the record within that you're currently updating. So on the email alert, we have the conditions where stage equals awarded and the stage has changed. So in this case, it's notifying or activating this workflow based on the stage changing to awarded, and then sending out that email to those individuals. So here's an example of the email configuration for that alert. So you can see that we have roles at the top that are picking. It has project manager, proposal manager, supervisor. And so I can pick those. I can also pick individuals, and I can pick security roles within the application. Everybody who logs into the system has a security role attached to them, so I could pick those as well. So where that arrow is, it says employee field biller and employee field project manager. So those would be the records that I'm sending this email to. In the subject line, you can see there's actually some fields that I selected. On the right side, it says insert field. And I picked information that was available within the application to send this email to those individuals with the, in that case, the project number and the project long name. And below, I can actually put text in there with those fields as well, so that they pop up accordingly within the email. And here's just a sample of the email that goes out. You can see on the right side, or I'm sorry, on the left side, the stage is awarded, and on the right side, example of the email that goes out. In this case, it includes a link to the change record, so they can actually click on the link and see that information. Others, the column field change, as I mentioned, this might be one of the workflows that you would use the most. And this one's based on a stage change again, and this would update the probability and weighted revenue for that project with the change of the stage. So we have there, we have a column field change, stage equals proposal go. And at that point, it updated the probability to 60%, and the stage equals the conditions, stage equals proposal go. And here's an example. You have on the left side, the arrow there, proposal go, and it updated the probability, and then updated the weighted fee there, taking the estimated fee, multiplying it by the probability, and giving you the weighted fee. Now into dashboards. So what is a dashboard, and what does a dashboard provide? So dashboard is an application interface which provides at-a-glance views of data. The dashboard provides a set of key performance indicators that give you a quick access to role-specific data to assist in understanding time-based data for informed decision-making. And again, it really is a area of the system within Vantagepoint that's been significantly rebuilt in the Vantagepoint as opposed to Vision. So it is an area that we have users that are looking for assistance in the dashboard build up, because the functionality is significantly more powerful than I would say in Vision, and it can provide different views of the information within the system, and you can have multiple dashboards that by role even, so a business development person can have 3 or 4 dashboards, a financial or accountant individual can have multiple dashboards, project manager. So the capabilities within the application is significant in terms of returning that data. So let's jump into some examples here and look at the Vantagepoint dashboards. So I'm in the edit mode right here. Turn this on. When I turn it off, you see some of the dashboards disappear. Turn them back on. So Deltek provided a number of pre-built dashboards, at least used as starting points, and allows you to configure them once they're built. All the ones that I have with stars here, I would say would be ones that would be more related to marketing and business development. But you can also see project manager dashboards, utilization for your own information as an employee. You also have some general ledger or owner, so more accounting or financial information, and be able to figure these based on your role within the system. So we have 3 different types of dashboards I'm looking at. One is a bar chart, or you can have area charts, column, line charts. So any of those different, what I'd say, KPIs that are looking at information in this kind of bar type format. We have a couple of those. And we also have table type dashboards, which it returns information or data to the user. So this would be kind of more in a column and row type format, similar to what you might see in Excel. And then you also have reports. So you can actually set up reports within the system and have these visible on your dashboard for review. Dash parts. Each of these rectangular boxes are what are called dash parts, and you define what each of these dash parts are. So you're really building dashboards by including dash parts and having similarly related dash parts on your screen here. With the Vantagepoint application, in edit mode, you have a dash part library, which allows you to, again, use pre-built dash parts as kind of different types of information that you would want to look at, and then be able to configure these to the specific needs of your company. So you can see here, there is a lengthy list of dash parts to choose from, and then selecting the ones applicable to your role, and be able to configure those to see the information you're looking at. So we'll just go into dash parts here. Some of them have some interactive information that you can choose. So in this case, I have it more set up as a kind of a pipeline report, but you can have these set up in other fashions. So in this case, I have all my in pursuit projects, but if I want to go to my active projects, I can see that here. And in this case, I'm having project managers. I can also change this information to say I want to see it by project type. And so looking at this information allows you to, on the fly, control information that you're looking at. On the right side here, we have information as to what each of these line colors depict. And so we have total compensation here, weighted revenue, and estimated revenue. And be able to see this information that's in the system, pulling it out, and then be able to look at this information on the fly. So there's some of the dash parts allow this functionality to be interactive. Okay. In this case, so I showed this one before, and this one we can say, open up some additional information with regards to projects for this client. So we have 6 projects here that are all for Atlantic Research Corporation, and we have totals of revenue that we've received from Atlantic Research Corporation, and they're all broken out by the projects here. And then we also have some thresholds that are set up within the application. So in this case, we defined these colors. And in this case, anything that's greater than $3 million, we have as blue, and anything that's less than that, we have in red. And you can define the colors, you can set up the thresholds, and these are all part of that configuration that I spoke of in terms of these dash parts. So some different examples of what you can do with these dash parts. You can also export them out to Excel or CSV files if you want to look at the information there. You can also, in often cases, filter the information. So be able to look at this in terms of certain client records. I might want only Bain and Company and be able to all right. And that showed this earlier. I might be doing something here, but it allows us to select the individual companies to see that information. Coming back, I want to go into other dashboard types. So this would be more of that pipeline review and be able to look at this information. Let's be able to go in. I'm going to filter it here and try this again. So 3. There we go. Sorry. So in this case, we're looking at all the projects that we're pursuing in the proposal stage and be able to look at this information. In this case, we do have some of those parameters set here in terms of how long these in pursuit projects have been open. So we have ones that are highlighted in red that maybe have had no really movement on these in terms of how long they've been open. So do we need to close these opportunities or follow up the client to see if this is ever going to come to fruition? Be able to understand what is the kind of length of time that these have been open. We can also look at ones that are relatively new and other ones that are kind of more in the middle of that process. You can also look at the potential revenue for those proposals based on either the weighted revenue or the estimated fee for those, and be able to track this information in the pipeline report here. Coming back, some other different examples. So as I mentioned, area type of dash parts. Here, kind of like more of a pie chart, and be able to hover over any of these to be able to see information specific about the potential revenue for each of what's in the stage in the in pursuit projects. These are by your organizational breakdown to be able to see this information across your company and different organizations set up within the system. And be able to see, again, this is a similar version of that pipeline report I showed earlier. This one happens to be by stage. Activities too, if you're tracking your activities throughout the application, You may have this is your activity list and be able to go into the system, see what your to-do list is, open these from right here in the dash part, update this information. You may have reached out to these individuals in terms of following up on this activity, type in your notes, mark it completed, and then move on down your list. It will move off the list when you make mark this completed, as these are showing ones that are more in the in pursuit or open activity stages. Okay. And just again, this is a line chart showing projected revenue based on time frames. So be able to look out in the future and what we anticipate potential revenue coming in based on awarded projects. Also, one that I get more requests for lately is the win-loss analysis, and be able to set up different reasons why you were awarded a project. If you define these different categories here or reasons, and you also use those for why you lost projects, and be able to look at this information. Here we're looking at the last 6 months for each of these and say, well, we're winning based on our design concept, where our relationship or fee. In this case, it looks like design concept just basically, almost 50% each. We have a slightly higher on the design concept that we win, but here our existing relationship, we have a much higher win rate than we do on losing project. So establishing that relationship with the client, having that long-term relationship seems to prove that we are more successful, at least that relationship being awarded those projects, than ones we maybe didn't have an established relationship. B, we're winning projects based on that. I'd say much higher rate than our fees in some of the reasons we lost. And then also being able to look at the lost analysis on what firms we're losing to. So in this case, we're losing a lot of firms to this A&E International. So maybe anytime we compete against them, we maybe need to change our strategy. Maybe where those are ones where I have to look into see, maybe we lost those on fee or relationship, and then analyze why we're losing those. So being able to look at this information very quickly based on some of that win-loss information. And then just wanted to show one more in the seller doer. It shows we can also have milestones coming up. This is functionality within the project record. Allows us to look at information in terms of when there's activities coming up in terms of milestones on projects. They could be in a pre-awarded stage or maybe post-award. So it's not something that's only what I would consider project managers using, but the business development or marketing team might use this as well in terms of tracking where they're at in terms of proposals submitted, or estimated decision dates, things of that nature in terms of following up. And as I mentioned, project managers, this might appear in a project manager dashboard because they might have bid dates in there in terms of when there's milestones related to that, or design, drawings that needed to be reviewed or submitted to the client. So be able to use these milestones on your project and be able to track that in terms of due dates. Okay. So really those are the main areas that I want to cover with regards to the activity, the workflows and dashboards. And we'll now open it to some questions. And Hillary, any coming in?
Jim, what are you seeing for, if you had to name the top 3 workflows that you're seeing people apply with the combination of opportunities and projects and Vantagepoint, what are you seeing there for the project cycle?
Right. So for, I'd say any of those in pursuit projects from a marketing business development side, I would say those stage changes are probably the most popular ones I see, because it can update other fields in the system. So maybe when you reach the stage change, you might have some more information about the project, so that you can update, let's say, those fields I talked about, maybe project type or market or service areas. Also, I see that very popular in terms of that go, no go decision, so that once you've decided to go for the project, you may need to alert other people within your organization in terms of maybe proposal development and when's that due, and getting more information such as the RFP or RFQ to be able to understand what the client's asking for. And then change that to award stage 2. I think that one is very popular because it sends out not only information maybe to the accounting team to say this project's been awarded, but also project managers to notify them or other team members on the project to say, okay, it's official now. Well, this has been awarded. We've changed the project now so that you can update your timesheets using that project. So I would say those notifications and what would be some of those stage changes are some of what I would say the most common uses. But again, I mentioned some that are more proposal driven, but I see them heavily used in a post-award stage 2 to notify activities or milestones that are coming up within that project. Was there any? Okay.
Well, for those activities or milestones, are you seeing like email notifications or dashboard notifications, or what's the preferred delivery method that you would recommend?
Activity such as those, I think people are looking at their emails. I'm always with the new dashboard functionality within Vantagepoint, I'm definitely trying to drive more people to the dashboard so you can receive notifications there in terms of reviewing those activities and keeping track of that information. I'd say most people are still relying on emails to get that because they are basically conditioned to look at those emails. A lot of information is transmitted through emails. So I'd say there's that higher percentage of likelihood that you'll want to receive an email versus your dashboard. Although dashboard functionality is getting more and more popular just because you have a lot more capability. So we definitely bring that up in our conversations with clients that are implementing the Vantagepoint application because we want people to get in the habit of using dashboards because there's so much flexibility and so much information that's at your fingertips on the dashboards that I think people are just beginning to take more and more notice of that functionality and getting that kind of conditioning to go there to look.
Okay. For the dashboards, can you use user-defined fields on dashboards similar to standard fields?
Yep. So you can use both the user-defined as well as standard fields within the application.
Is there a limitation on fields that dashboards recognize?
Well, most of those what I consider the one-to-one fields, which are like that market field that I showed. That is a user-defined field within the system, and it would be typically set up with maybe a drop-down menu, allow you to choose options that are markets that you work in, and you pick one selection there for that type of. So that's what I consider that one-to-one. And those can be driven to say, I want everything sorted by market, or I want all the information by this type of market, or included on some of those, what I'd say are those table type of dash parts, where it's more of that Excel look and feel, and say, maybe I want the project number, project name, I want the market, project type, fee values and things of that nature. So that's a user-defined field that you're included in the various dashboard types. Ones that I would say are not as prevalently used in what I'd say dashboards that are that you're creating, kind of that user-defined dash part would be grid type fields. So that's what I'd say a one-to-many relationship. So in that case, an example might be like addresses. You have a client, you have an address field, but that address is made up of, address 1, address 2, city, state, zip, and then they might have multiple addresses. So there's not only columns of data within that field, but there's rows of data in that field. And I'd say many dash parts aren't going to be built for what would be that one-to-many relationship, such as a grid field.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
There's a question here regarding web services. I guess, Jim, what would you recommend for a training or learning platform for folks that wanted to know more about creating web service workflows?
I would say that would probably be talking to one of our technical team members, because personally, I've never developed a web service workflow. My experience is heavily involved with the other versions, the activities, emails, alerts, the column field changes. So I would say that's a question I would say needs to go more to a technical resource on our team to be able to understand what's involved with that process.
And we can certainly put you up in touch with someone if that is of interest to you for the folks that asked that question. I think we had one more question trickle in here. For the reports that can be visible on dashboards, does it only work with canned reports, or can custom reports also be shown and displayed on a dashboard?
Yep, so any report that you have in the application, whether it be just using standard functionality or customer one, that basically is creating the dashboard and displaying that report that you have. So it asks you what that report is, and you set it up on that dashboard. So if you can run that report within the application, you can put that on the dashboard.
Great, thank you so much, Jim.
Mm-hmm.
I believe we've addressed all the questions that came up, but if we overlooked any, I know Liz is pretty good about letting us know to follow up as well.
Okay. Two, I know that this is being recorded, but my contact information is on the last slide here, and Liz will be sending out the recording upon your request. Anything else, Liz or Hillary, you want to add?
Yeah, I just want to thank everyone for joining. Jim, thank you so much for presenting. Hillary, always great to have you for our questions. If anyone would like a copy of today's recording, please feel free to reach out to me. Again, my name is Liz Sidney, and my contact information is in the chat, and I will send it to you as soon as possible. Jim and Hillary will be in touch and following up. At the end of this webinar session, there's going to be a survey pop up on your browser window. Please fill that out. Your feedback is very important to us. Again, Jim's contact information is on the screen, but if you have any immediate questions, please feel free to contact me directly. And thank you, everyone, for your time and for joining us today.
All right.
Great, thank you guys. Have a good day.
Take care.